Hi, I'm Dave Wurzel, and you're watching PHTV4. This is Meet the Merchant. And today, Meet the Merchant is doing a special family edition, we'll call it. We're meeting with some financial advisors from Edward Jones Financial on Harlem Avenue in Palos Heights. With me on my immediate right, we've got, I think, the person who probably was there from the beginning, right? Jack Muda. That office began or opened in 2000, is that correct?
That's correct.
Congratulations on that. So you're headed into your 23rd year anniversary this year. And I want to talk about that in a second, but let me introduce on my left, you have the family part of the operation, right? We've got his son and daughter here. On my left, you've got Jack Muda, another financial advisor, and Liz Baker, financial advisor. Thank you all for being here this morning. And again, congratulations. 23 years in business, that's amazing. That's wonderful. Can you talk a little bit about how you got started in Palos and also how you corralled your kids into joining you on staff? I hope that's a dream. As a parent myself, the idea of having my family, in my work sounds like a nice thing. How'd that go?
Well, there's a good story there, so I'll try to give a little background. I started with Edward Jones at age 42. So it was kind of a mid-career change. A little background, my wife and I were both graduates of Chicago Christian High School in Palos Heights. She grew up in Evergreen, I grew up in Oak Lawn, so we're Southwest Siders. And after we got married, we lived in Evergreen Park for a few years. That's where my daughter Liz was born, and then and Jake. And right after Jake was born, we moved to Palos. We lived in Old Palos. We moved in 1984 and been in Palos Heights now for almost 40 years. About half of the time in Old Palos, and then we built a house in Navajo Hills in 2017. So I was a graduate of Illinois Institute of Technology, chemical engineer. And my first job was with Amoco. I worked there for 21 years and went through a corporate downsizing in 1999 when British Petroleum bought out Amoco. And they kind of wanted to move me anywhere around the world, and we decided to stay local. And so I took a kind of a severance package and took some time to think about what was next, and ended up connecting with an old friend who was with Edward Jones, and decided to make a go of it. So it was a major career change, going from the corporate world to, I did have an MBA in finance, so I felt pretty comfortable in terms of tackling the financial field, but starting a new business was from scratch was quite an experience. Edward Jones, great company, and their program is very much focused on your local community. So I literally went and knocked on, I don't know how many doors, maybe 500 or something like that, and introduced myself and started the process of opening a new business in Palos Heights. My first office was at 122nd in Harlem by the old White Hen Pantry. Mm-hmm. And actually didn't open that until 2000. I had to work out of my house for a while and undergo their training program, which was very, very, very fine, very excellent. And it wasn't unusual. Edward Jones does a fair amount of hiring of people mid-careers, changing careers. But it was still a big step, and it took a few years to kind of build up the recognition and start to build a business, like I say, from scratch.
It is an incredible story. It's a journey, and I think when people hear the name Edward Jones, they're thinking large national corporation thing. But your story certainly personalized it in a way, and it is very community-based. And so even though they're national, I mean, you have deep roots in this community, and that adds, I think, that connection that you're talking about that is probably, especially in this area, so important for people looking for financial advice, I would think, right? So whatever the hardships were along the way, we're glad you're here. Glad that you've been so successful, obviously, at it. I don't know, Jake or Liz, you want to talk about how you got drawn into the local business with your dad?
Yeah, it's such an honor to be in the same office and to be rubbing shoulders with my father, and definitely from an early age, I would say, just got in touch with investing and definitely appreciate being exposed to it at a younger age. I can remember buying some shares of Pepsi back in high school and ended up cashing those in to buy an engagement ring down the road. So
Good investment.
yeah, definitely. So kind of the early training of thinking about investing was taught at an early age. So that's something I've deeply appreciated as time has gone on. But yeah, basically have always looked up to my father, and to kind of follow in his footsteps was something that just had a conviction on, and haven't looked back. And it's been nice. I had a period of time where I moved into my own Edward Jones office in Tinley Park for a period of time, and enjoyed that portion of my career where I was more independent from the family business. But it has been great. I moved back into Payless in just this past January, and it has been great to kind of be back in the fold with the family, and looking forward to the future. So.
All right, well, welcome back.
Thank you.
Liz, how about you? When did you get started?
So a couple years ago, I started with actually Edward Jones. When my dad started, I was an office assistant for him in his old office, and spent about 5 years helping out in that way. And again, I'll echo what Jake said, that financial foundation of just being smart about budgeting and money and all of that was started at a very young age. And I'll tell a story of sitting at the Baker Square in Payless and my dad writing on a napkin to explain how mortgages worked. And I think I was a freshman in high school and Jake was younger, but
Probably ahead of the learning curve against the other freshmen at that
a little
point.
bit. So just a really strong base. So, and then going into working in the office and just getting a feel for the clients and how the office worked. It was always something that was fascinating to me. And I worked there through college and graduate school, and then went on to start my own career. But my dad kept on kind of knocking on my door saying, hey, would you ever be
Recruiting?
interested? Well, he just said, I think you would do well, and I think this would be a good fit for you. And so through the years, I just kept thinking about that. And finally, a couple years ago, he said, hey, again, what do you think, Liz? Do you think you'd ever consider? And so I started thinking about moving from my career.
So you
like
finally made the
him,
right decision.
it's been wonderful to learn from my dad, who's been doing this for 20 years. That experience is priceless to learn from.
For sure. I mean, congratulations on the 23 years in Payless, but even more so on the legacy, obviously, with your children. That's a tremendous compliment to you and the work that you do.
Well, thank you, Dave. When I started, I had no vision that my kids would be in this business someday. I mean, this was, it was, starting a new business. My wife was stay-at-home mom, and I did get some help with a severance from my old career, but we were starting over again in a way, and we were very fortunate that financially everything worked out well. Jake went on to college and started a career in civil engineering and worked there for 10 years. Liz went on to college and graduate school and went on to speech pathology and had a successful career for 20 years. So it was more of this became an opportunity as time went on, and I knew that I was going to start winding down at some point. And Edward Jones looked at my business a few years ago when I started more seriously thinking about retiring, and they really recommended breaking it into two pieces. My son, Jake, had already been with me. We started about, 7 years ago, Jake? Yeah. And I apprenticed him for about 3 years in Palos, and then he started his own branch in Tinley and has done very well there. And then when, like I say, when the retirement got more serious about 3 years ago, and Edward Jones says, we'd really like you to put it into two pieces, is when I approached my daughter. And yeah, so it was an opportunity for either one of them, but I wouldn't say I heavily recruited them. I like to think I dripped on them a little bit, and it's worked out well. Now I see, not only retiring but leaving kind of a legacy with two of my kids. We have three. We have a younger daughter at home still, and we to pass this on to my kids. A lot of my clients are, have become good friends. It's a relationship business, and they've been my clients. A lot of them helped me get started, so they've been with me for 20 plus years. And to be able to take that trusting relationship and pass it on to two people I trust more than I could of anybody else I could think of has been a real blessing.
I was going to say, I would imagine for clients to know whose hands their business, their financial transactions, having in this case worked with your dad, and to know that the son and the daughter are there now too, to know that it's going to continue that way. So we've met the merchants. How about let's talk about the actual business now, the nuts and bolts. So we know it's a financial advising institution. Do you want to talk about, give us a snapshot of like some of the services, some of the types of advising you can provide for people?
Yeah, definitely. And I appreciate everything that's, the context that's been shared, but to get into more of the nuts and bolts of what do we do as financial advisors, I do think one thing that really sets us apart is our, the fact that we're situated in the community, and that's where our financial planning process starts, is sitting down with an individual, face to face, and just hearing from them their story. And that's not only just their financial inventory, but that's understanding kind of their background, behavioral finance, how do they think about and view money, what has been their life journey, and just really going through a multi-appointment process of understanding what's important to them as individuals. And then we kind of walk them through our established process of putting together a game plan, depending on where they want to go with things. And that is different for every individual. So that's part of what makes it exciting for me, is everyone is incredibly different with where they're at and where they want to go. No two situations are the same. So definitely keeps the job very exciting, and there's always something to learn. So we'll walk them through our process in terms of putting together a game plan for financial strategies, and then the ongoing piece of that is again 20 plus years in the community, just working with them for the long haul. Life brings about the ups and downs, and we're there when things like an SVB bank crisis hits. We're there kind of as a voice of reason, kind of assessing what's going on relative to their situation, and kind of can speak into their life with a little bit more of a bird's eye view relative to what they may be experiencing in their situation.
Right. You can bring a level of expertise and context that most lay people are not going to have. I've read the news, I read the newspapers, I've seen the websites, I've heard, but what does it really mean, and how does it impact me and my investments?
Personally.
Right? Yes.
Yeah.
And obviously, to have a relationship with a financial advisor, somebody that you can trust, becomes that much more important, especially within that situation. And I understand that. I know for me, I would definitely appreciate ability to talk to somebody, because there is a context to my investments, right?
Right.
My life, my risk tolerance level,
Right.
Right.
but also my specific needs. Maybe you want to address that a little bit, because I can see where you'd have somebody come and say, well, I've got, kids who are in grade school, I'm hoping they go to college someday, or, somebody who's approaching retirement, or somebody, whatever their situation is, how you adapt to each plan. You want to speak to that?
Right, and kind of piggybacking off of what Jake said, every person has an absolutely different plan, and it might be they're starting to get invested, and they're looking at their future, and they have 40 years before they retire. So that plan looks a little bit different based on how much time they have and how much risk they can take versus somebody who is approaching retirement. So we work with each individual based on those needs. We, like you said, we do planning for education funding. We look at life insurance needs. And we also can do things with estate planning and looking towards the future and passing money along to the next generation.
I was going to say, and that's a good, you're giving us like a
Bird's eye
snippet
view,
of
right?
it, but I've been on your website and I've scrolled down and all the different services you offer. I mean, there's an incredible list of things that you can help people with. And, I'll do my own personal shout. I'm at the other end of this. I'm in that semi-retired phase of my life, but I can remember people saying, when you're young, invest, and at that time, you're like, oh, that's too far away, it's too far away. It's never too late, but certainly it could have been
Sure,
Right.
sure.
better.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So jump in as soon as you can. Do you want to talk, a little bit about, you talk, so it sounds like part of the process is a person comes in, you'll talk to them and meet with them to find out the context of what they want to do, and what happens next with them and their money. Like, how do you move forward from there?
Yeah, I mean, in general, again, it is client specific, but part of the value that we're bringing to the table is just organizing things. So there's different types of accounts that accomplish different purposes, and making sure that everything is organized in a tax efficient manner so that we're kind of keeping the IRS at bay.
So, for example, like if I said, my daughters are post-college now, but if I'm on the front end of that and I said, look, I want to start to develop an account for them, you would be able to tell me these are the ways that you might want to invest that money to help build a college fund.
Yeah, that's a good way of saying it, Dave. So, clients will come to us with a general,
Goal,
picture or
right.
goal in mind, and that's where we can come in and, break it down strategically. Okay, this is the type of account that's going to get us there. And to that point too, I mean, that's what's really exciting about this business. I mean, we have literally like 4 generations worth of families where we have, folks that were Korean War veterans all the way down to opening up 529s for their,
Grandchildren.
yeah, grandchildren and great-grandchildren. So that's where kind of some of the generational plan can come in. But yeah, to your question, someone will come in with just a general idea of what they'd like to do, and our job is to put
Streamline.
together the strategy to make it happen.
I was going to say, it sounds like you need to have a pretty, because I want to talk about, your experience and your dad's and your other staff at Edward Jones at your office, the background experience it takes to be able to navigate that variety, because I would imagine things are constantly like changing in flux, developing, new options come up or old ones, just
Keeping up to date on the newest
Right.
practices, the Secure Act that just passed at the end of last year. So new options for how much money to put into IRAs and all of
Yeah.
that. So staying on top of that is a part of our work.
Right, that's your
Yeah.
job, and that's the expertise you bring to this
Right.
to help people make that decision. I'm going to finish, unless you have any. I don't want to cut you off. I love the line, and I think you've kind of spoken to it really well. Obviously, the community, families trust you. And trust is so critical. I would think in all businesses, but especially yours, because people are, sharing their financial survival, livelihood, future with you.
For sure.
Your website, I'm going to have to make sure I get the line correctly here. We've dedicated to providing you top-notch client service. I think you've kind of spoken to that already, but I do want to give you a chance to speak to it, maybe one more time. How you do that? Like, how do you provide that? Because obviously you've been in business for 23 years, so you're doing it. You're doing something really well. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I can go first, and
Yeah.
I'm sure Liz will have some insights on her end as well. But I would say this is our strong suit, just far and above. I can't tell you how many times I've had clients come in, we're working through a complex situation, and we have to call their other financial institution, and you end up going through this 800 number and
Right.
talking to some AI on the other end. And as much as I love some of the digital trends with my phone and everything else that we can enjoy the convenience of, I think the financial industry has kind of trended towards this 800 number dynamic, and that's completely opposite of the way we operate. We have a full-time office administrator, and we happen to have an office administrator who was back on the options exchange in the mid-'80s, so he brings a ton of experience just beyond the client service. But that's how we're set up. A client calls in, they're talking to someone straight away, and if it's not me, it's Liz or my father or the full-time admin that we have. So it's unmatched. I mean, the level of attention that you're going to receive.
I would think people would appreciate that, especially, I mean, we've all had, everybody I'm sure has had the frustrating thing where you press 3 or now 4, say this, no, not that, and you,
Right.
you kind of navigate that experience. In this area, I think that would especially be frustrating. It's one thing if I'm having trouble with a service or a product, but now you're talking about
Yeah,
My
exactly.
money.
My
Yeah.
money.
my money,
Mhm.
my
Yeah.
financial livelihood here, and the
Yeah.
ability to talk to a person, and then to have that face-to-face contact when we get there. Liz, did you want?
Yeah, and I think my favorite thing about this is that clients become friends, close friends, and that you get to walk them through and celebrate with them when they meet their goals, or mourn with them when they have sadness in their family situations. But you get to walk alongside of them every part of that, and that sometimes you become one of the first calls that people make in situations of joy or sadness, and that's so special and not something we take lightly.
I was going to say it is a special thing. Again, I think it speaks to your business, but also the importance of that. That is how important it is, how critical, and to have the relationship, because that helps provide you, I think, the context to like, all right, what type of advice or assistance can you give them in their financial planning? Okay. Jake, Liz, thank you very much. I really appreciate you coming in. And again, congratulations and welcome.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
I love the family legacy you've created here.
I do too.
All right, thank you for coming in.
Thanks,
Good
Dave.
luck.
Thank
And
you.
hopefully
Appreciate
there's
it.
another 23 years and maybe someday another generation.
That'd be great. That'd be great. Keep it rolling.
All right. I'm Dave Wurzel, and you've been watching Meet the Merchant. Meet the Merchant has been meeting with Jack Muda and his son Jake and Liz from Edward Jones on Harlem Avenue in Palos Heights. Thank you for watching.